Hi my friends. This will probably be a quick video, but I was in the middle of doing a reading for myself and I started laughing and I had to make a video about it because if you watched my channel ever, you will likely have heard me talk about the importance of context and how necessary it is to have a really good question and to sit with it and define what it is you really want to know before you shuffle and lay out the cards. And so, though I preach that, I very rarely follow it when I'm reading for myself. I'll say I do that when I'm reading for others because generally I feel a responsibility if someone has paid me. Not generally, I always feel a responsibility. So I will sweat it out. With me, when I'm reading for myself, really anything goes, and I'm very lazy about it, which is one reason why I don't read for myself very much. So, but I just felt like, you know, I'm about to go out, and I have travel this week, and I just really just felt like playing with the cards. This deck in particular, which I did a walkthrough of this week, this is the Oculo Oculati Tarot, which again was sent to me by a very generous soul, who seems to have sensed that this deck was something that I would respond to, and I have. But anyway, blah blah blah. The purpose of this video is not that. What is the purpose of this video is, I was like, I just want to play with my cards. I just want to like get out and shuffle and do a reading for myself. And so the normal reading that I do on Instagram when I feel like playing with my cards and posting them is receive and release, which is something I think I got from Kellyanne Maddox. She had a spread where those were two of the positions, and I kind of appropriated that. And I like it as a general reading, but I don't find it all that helpful for me on a general daily basis. And one of the reasons why is that it's vague. What am I, like, I'll do a receive and release and say, let go, you know, look for this, let go of that. And it's always super general. It's kind of like a sun sign horoscope. It doesn't really tell you a whole lot. Because there's so much more to play with. And I do that a lot because I rarely have, like, it's such an odd thing as a reader that I rarely have big life questions that I'm wrestling with that I do readings about. It's really odd. Like, I don't read for myself all that much. And when I do, it's kind of a performative thing. But anyway, I felt like doing a reading. I didn't have any particular question. So I just sort of thought I would do a general spread for the week. And my thought was initially like, what's the lesson of this week? And I thought, no, that's dumb. And then, so as I was shuffling, I kind of landed on, what's the goal? What's the objective of this week? And so I shuffled some more, drew the cards, laid them out, and then sat with them, and came up with, like, a pretty trite reading. And I thought, that's trite, that's dumb, that doesn't help anything. Like, how do you do that? Like, so for example, what I said was, so here we have the Seven of Wands, and the Seven of Wands for me, numerologically, 7 is an internalization, Wands obviously fire. So for me, it's like it's a reflection. If you think about the journey from 1 through 5, we have the seed, we have the duality or polarity, then we have the produce of that in the 3, we have a stabilization of it in the 4, and then in the 5, the explosion of that. The 6 rebalances, and then in the 7, we come back and say, what do I know now that I didn't know before? And so the 7s for me traditionally engage a recapitulation or a re-exploration of what we really are feeling and thinking and learning. And so with the Seven of Wands, it would be about, what am I really passionate about? What am I really excited about? What's really burning me up? And then this is the Page of Wands, so interesting little combo. So the pages for me have several functions, but their base function is that they discover, they see, they learn, sometimes they bring messages, but they're a lot like the Ace. They're the seed of an idea. They're sort of taking the Ace idea and personifying it as someone who sort of said, oh, this is cool. And so with Wands, of course, it's like someone who's like, oh, this is cool, I'm kind of excited about this idea. Let me learn more about it. And then the final card is the Magician. And the Magician for me depends really a lot on context. but he can be the synthesizing of energy, the conduit of energy. I often use the analogy of electrical transformers. So he takes the unusable and deadly energy from the ether, transforms it into something usable, and then makes it. So the way that the transformers, electrical transformers, take the dangerous, limitless electricity and transform it into the house, into something that won't burn it down. So that's one way of looking at things. But the other way of looking at things for the magician is that he plays tricks. He's a gamer, he's a gamester, he's a trickster, he's a fraud. So it really does depend on the context of what I'm working with. But so I started putting together, and I was like, okay, it's time to look inside yourself and discover something new and then transform that into something usable. That was like my general, and I'm like, that's dumb. And it's not that it's dumb, it's that it's not specific enough for me, it's not helpful. And one of the reasons why is because my question, even though I sat with it and refined it, is still vague. It's still too nebulous to really get me the kind of reading that I want. And the reason that I'm making this video is because I just want to share with you how I'm always waving my flag about specificity, but I'm still failing myself when I neglect it. So what's the objective of this week? It seems like a fine question, but what's the objective this week in terms of what? There's a lot going on this week. I'm working my day job. I'm leading a conference one of those days. I'm doing a team building activity with my team on another one of those days. I'm traveling 2 of those days, which is always exhausting. Then there's just life stuff. Getting ready for the holidays, all of this stuff. So what's the objective of the week in terms of what? And that's where I have neglected the specificity of the question. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because if this question were about work, then the context of what I'm looking at introspectively in the 7 changes. So let's think about it in terms of my job, and just to be like totally straight up about what's going on is that there's a lot of frustrating things happening. There have been a lot of frustrating things happening over the course of the year. The company has been going through a merger for the past 3 years. There's a lot of people working a lot of hours, and there's a lot of my team, who I discovered this week, have been working 12-hour days, which I didn't know, in order to get last-minute requests incorporated into things they've designed. All right, so like that is a lot of context. So if I'm looking at this in terms of work, the message becomes much more specific. And so in a way does the imagery on the cards. So if I look at the 7 of Wands and I think about it in terms of what I talked about earlier, which is getting introspective about what I'm really passionate about, that lights me up in a different way, because I'm thinking in terms of my job and the passion I had for my job. So it suggests finding what originally connected to me to my career. But it's also, the image suddenly becomes much more important than it was when I was doing something really general, because the Rider-Waite Smith depiction, which we do have elements of here, has a sense of resilience and resistance to an onslaught, right? So you have very much, you can't see the other people, but you've got all the fighting sort of wands and then this person fending them off. That in my work life really resonates, because part of my job for my team as the leader of a team is to protect them from being burnt out, which is an element of the suit of fire, right? So that changes everything, and it adds so much more specificity to just this one card. And then I think about the page in the context of that, and so the story changes. And so this becomes me protecting the sort of innocents, the innocent doers, the innocent workers on my team, who then become the pages. So this becomes sort of me as the leader protecting the team through some really creative solutions, or even some potential gentle trickery, right? So it suddenly, this is something that's actionable because I made it about my job, and then everything else lights up. And it's not just like, go inside and figure out what's nice and what makes you feel good and then go and do it. No, like, that's that's fine. I always try to talk about this stuff without being insulting. But it's fine if you are interested in, like, I don't know. It's not fine, I guess, for me as a reader. It's not specific enough because you can't do anything with it. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's not okay because it's not helpful. It's not actionable, I think. It's even just adding a little bit more specificity makes it so much more actionable because I suddenly see the narrative in such a specific and incredible way, and it does make me think, okay, yeah, I'm going to have to address the fact that my team needs defending, and I'm going to have to be really creative about how I get there this week. That to me is an actionable goal. Same thing if I were to make this about my writing life or my tarot life, you know. So if I were to go back to my tarot work and start this reading again, then this takes me more towards a more initial sense of my seven, meaning the Seven of Wands, to go within and figure out what lights up your passion. So. And then the page changes because the page becomes me. And so it's like, if you really want to, like, improve your reading this week, I think what this suggests is, like, go back inside, go really investigate what you have learned, what your passions are, and then you go back to being a student. You go back to being basics. You go do some reading or experimenting with the things that got you lit up, and that will help you manifest your readings in a new way. There's also a sense in this card, again, where the image speaks to me. Now, like, suddenly I'm very aware of this, sort of the muscularity of this person, and the way that he's holding the wand makes me think of a barbell. And so it's like, you gotta work out. You've got to make the effort to practice, to do your scales, to do your reps. In this area of divination, for example, so that you can start to manifest again. So, you know, the little bits of context are so fucking huge when we're reading. And the little choices we make to just say, more than like, what's my goal this week? What's the lesson? What am I looking for? What do I receive or release? To give it the context of work, of love, of family, of bills, of food shopping, you know, whatever. The more granular we make our question, suddenly the cards become so much clearer, so much easier to read, so much more specific, and then what I'm able to do with them is take action based on that. You know what I mean? I can then make an action plan around it, which to me is the whole point of doing this anyway. Now, whether or not I choose to act on it is a separate story, but it's there for me to act on. It has given me specifics, and it's not a kind of nebulous, vague, go within and sort of feel, you know, again, like, that stuff is fine if that's what you're looking for. That's not how I read, but I often let myself off the hook, and because of that, I give myself frustratingly vague readings. So that is all I really wanted to do, is share with you how I preach this, and then when it comes time for me to read for myself, I inevitably throw out the baby with the bathwater, have a frustrating reading, have a moment of saying, I'm bad at this, and then laugh when I realize, no, you idiot, you weren't specific. And you're the king of specificity on your channel. So be fucking specific, and ask a question that at least gives you enough context to get where you're going. So anyway, that is that. Hope this is interesting for you. Have a good week. Be good.